welcome back to the Book and Life podcast with Crystal Fleming. And I am excited today to have a fellow lover of Mills and Boone and also a fellow lover of the good old time books, the ones that are conflict and suspense. I spent a lot of time today with our guest, and I felt so honored and so privileged to have this conversation with her. And words fail me how lovely it was and how honored I am that she took the time to just sit and talk to me and share ideas and thoughts about the industry and about writing and about just characters and the worlds that we create and how important books are and what our longevity that we feel is needed. So, without further ado, I have to introduce this woman. But before I do that, I want to just quickly read the blurb advert that we have from Maria Curley's The Shadow, Time Guardian Book 4. The battle is over, the war is won, the prophecy complete. But life can't just pick up where it left off for Ethan, struggling to cope with tragic loss at odds with friends at the guard. He finds himself adrift, jumping at shadows and sensing someone who can't possibly be there, blaming herself for the goddess Athena's death. Giselle swears revenge and fulfilled the immortals' plan for world domination, but Giselle hadn't planned on love, and that leaves her with an unbearable choice. Should she follow her heart or the strings of a goddess short on praise but high on expectation, who continues to pull her from the grave? As the guard and the order battle through the past and into an impossible future, darkness lurks around every corner. The fight for the world's survival rests just one. Is it friend or foe who stands in the shadow? The Price of Freedom by Rosemary Rowan, which is her Roman British crime series, is donating its royalties to the Ukraine crisis, and it's such an important fund. So please, if you've got a spare pound or two, make sure you go over and you pick up one of her books. And I also can say her agent has donated her commission as a way of helping with this crisis and at this horrible time. So thank you all for stopping by, and now I'd love to welcome our guest. Hey guys, so I have been super excited about this guest coming on. She was recommended to me by somebody I adored and I loved having on. So let's not spend any more time delaying the most amazing event of the day. Please welcome Virginia McCullough. Was that right? Did I get it that time?
McCullough. It's
McCullough. Sorry.
OUGH on the end. McCullough. That's
I don't
fine.
know why I went with Kali. I was like McCullough. I am
I get
terrible. I tried
many
really
many
hard, but
pronunciations. Don't worry about it.
so I see that you've got two books out currently. You've got The Ranch Biomis Twins and you've got The Docks Holiday Homecoming. So do you want to tell us, because I know it's a series, so do you want to tell us a little bit about the series and then a little bit about each book?
Sure. It's for the Harlequin Heartwarming line, and this particular line is focused on Harlequin westerns. And for anybody who wants to know about the Harlequin Heartwarming line, it's what they call their sweet or clean romances. Um, and so you won't find language and that sort of thing. They're very straightforward. They're each 70,000 words or so. And the Ranchers Wyoming Twins is a book that brings somebody back to her home place after being gone, and actually her family lost a ranch, and the the hero is the man who bought it, who is raising his late sister's twins. She was killed in the Afghanistan war. So that's
Wow.
and it's sheep ranching, and it's got that western flavor to it. Horseback riding, country dancing. Actually, the thing that I liked that was fun about it was the two of them turned out to be very good dancers. So
I love
that was
that.
fun. Yeah, that was fun. And the Doc's Holiday Homecoming is the woman in the first book. Her name is Heather, and she's back from from where she was staying for a while as a nurse. She's a nurse practitioner, and she was helping a woman named Olivia, who is a radiologist in Minnesota. She was helping with her very ill daughter, going through leukemia treatment. And so that woman comes to live in Adelaide Creek, Wyoming, and and Heather's brother, long lost brother, comes back, and those two are the love interests in the Doc's Holiday Homecoming.
I
She's
do love
looking
that.
for a true home of the heart. Olivia is Dr. Donahue, and she finds it in Adelaide Creek, where she's very well connected already with this other family and the, these little twins, and she has a daughter, and and Jeff Stanhope, the brother, he comes from Seattle, back to where to Adelaide Creek, and he's got a 14-year-old boy with him that he has taken as a guardian of this boy. A friend of his died, and he
I
took
love multiple
her
stories.
son.
This is just,
So
oh,
yes, so these what I really enjoy doing is creating families in different ways, and
I love that idea.
and people are often not related biologically to any of the people in these families that they end up with, um, and that's
They're the
to
best
me that's
families,
fun.
though. Yeah,
Yeah, I
they're
really enjoy
choosing
that.
each other. Yeah, I love that, and I love the fact it's set in Wyoming. I have a very little bit of a thing. I want to go see Wyoming because I hear about the beautiful skies and the views and the countryside. And I know it sounds bizarre because I'm Scottish and I have all that here, but
Yeah,
it's different. It's totally different. And
it's the vastness, I think, of it.
yeah,
The
and
West
I
has,
love the idea of riding under it and just,
yeah,
yeah. I miss riding because since I broke my jaw, I haven't actually ridden a horse. Because here you have to wear a helmet, and I can't get a
uh-huh.
helmet on. So I haven't been able to ride, and I'm a fully qualified rider, and I miss it so much. So I know if I go to the States, I don't have to put a helmet on. So
I
that's
think
part of the reason I
I
want to go
was
there.
I was attracted to this because well, when I visited Scotland, I was completely taken with the sheep everywhere, and
Yes.
and we went to visit these sacred sites and the stone circles, and there were sheep wandering around in there. I just and in fact, on my desk, I keep a little bronze sheep thing from Scotland. So I
Oh,
wanted
that's
to
so
do that
cute.
sheep ranching instead of cattle ranching when they suggested to me that they were looking for western for western settings. And the sheep ranching came in mind, but I also then connected with a childhood, um, kind of a little childhood interest was horses and riding. So
I
I was
grew up
able to connect
with
those.
farm animals, so yeah, it's such a beautiful way to set a scene as well. I think it's realistic and it comes into realism writing, and I think realism romance writing is such an amazing thing if done right. And yourself have been one of the leaders now for making realism writing very important to the audiences, and you pull it off so well. And I think you're now one of the pioneers for that. And I just love that. I love the way that you're still taking stories that have been around for so long and you're making them so new and fresh, and just you just melt when you read your work. I really think that. And so I was super excited to have you on to hear about these two.
Well, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about this show is we talk about everything.
I know.
We had a good long natter, as I would say here in Scotland, before we started recording, and that's the great thing because we talk about writing and we talk about all this stuff that we can't maybe share on the podcast, but we are educating one another, and the whole point of this is to uplift everybody and to hold everybody up so that we can all benefit and share these pressing stories that we all have inside of us. Because either you love writing or you don't.
Yes. Well, I've always considered myself one of the really lucky people because I really love writing.
You do it so well. I just love the way that you do it. So it just sounds like it's so effortless and it flows just so perfectly that it just feels like you're literally walking into a movie and you're watching the movie, but you're reading it. So yeah, I think I always recommend you, and I recommend a couple of other people to you all the time, depending obviously on the genre. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
you're one of my more recommendations.
Well, thank
I
you.
butcher your name every time though,
Ah,
but
that's okay.
I
We
still
don't worry
recommend
about
you.
that. Actually, if something looks effortless, that's like 10 drafts later, I mean, it's like
Oh yeah, and that's what people
I'm
don't
not,
realize. It is. It's hard work to get
yeah.
there. I know that. I've done like 13 different drafts, and then I'm like, wait, what was the story again? Like you do feel like you kind of lose your mind a little bit. Is there a book that you've got upcoming that you're excited to share? Is there like another series you're working on, or is there another book that you've got in the works?
Well, I'm going to be finishing. I'm going to be writing book two of a series. It's my Saint Anne's Island series, and Island Healing was the first one, and Island Secrets is the second, and then Island Waltz will be the third. But it's taken me a long time because I got diverted. I write nonfiction too, and I got diverted and didn't get my second volume of that series out. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I've got it in my mind for 2023, and I'm
Oh, that
trying to
sounds good.
schedule out. Yeah, and I also have some other projects in the works. Um, I've got a book that's being circulated now. It's called the Cana Light Affair, and it features a a baby that was rescued, and then a painting of the lighthouse where it was where this baby, where this couple found a baby that they was not theirs. They didn't keep the baby, and but it became a big part of their lives because of the island and the lighthouse rather where this took place. So that book is circulating. And then I really, one of the things that I like about modern fiction trends is putting, it's usually women together who were either cousins, sisters, college roommates, or high schools, they all went to high school together or something. And then they always have these reunions, or they find there's a summer that is kind of pivotal in their lives, and they maybe they broke apart, they come back. And I've got
Yeah.
one of those that's going to take place at a lake in Wisconsin, where these four women had all worked during college, and they come back every year. And this particular year, I'm calling it the Second Chance Women of Reflection Lake. And
Oh, I love that title. It's
they've
such a
all been
beautiful title.
married once, and now they're 40ish, and they're going to start, or at least one is going to start the second marriage round. And so a lot happens in this week before this wedding is supposed to take place. So we don't know whether the wedding's going to happen. We don't know if maybe somebody else is going to have a wedding that they didn't expect. We don't know what's going to happen.
I love that. That sounds incredible. It's
I
better
love
that
books like that.
because I got inspired when I knew you were coming on. I just got this wave of inspiration, and it was for my Lords of Carfield series. And the idea is that there are these three stuffy brothers who are lords, and each of them gets pulled into romantic situations with everyday working women. So the first one owns a bookshop, and I'll just talk about her because she's easier. But she has a bookshop, and there's one day that they're having an argument because he owns the land for the bookshop, and we they find a baby in a box
Oh,
in the shop, and then like he thinks that baby's hers, and it just starts this whole love kind of starts all his love feelings back up again that he's tried so hard to bury because he has to be the head of the family. And it's just that beautiful story of him learning that he doesn't need to be this hard and cold man, and her realizing that she can love him because he can love her back. And it's that story. And it was so funny because I hadn't touched that. I hadn't touched that idea at all until I heard you were coming on the show. And then
Oh,
I was like, whoo, I got an idea. And I literally, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning or something here. And I went, ooh, I got an idea. And Ian was like, go to sleep. I'm like, nope, gotta go write this. And I got out of bed and it was freezing in my living room, but I sat with a blanket wrapped around my head. I must have looked like a homeless person. And I had my hand was literally frozen solid as I was trying to write down the idea. Because I'm not allowed to write in bed. Because there was one time I forgot to put the pen cap on and put it away, and Ian rolled over and broke the pen.
oh no.
And he had this like big black ink spot on his back for like 2 weeks, and no matter what we used, we could not get it off.
Oh
And it was
no.
awful. And so, yeah, he banned me from writing in bed. So I have to get out of the bed and be a bit like a cave woman with the blankets rolled around my head and just hope that I can get it written down before I get frostbite.
That's so funny. Well, you have
Yeah,
beautiful ideas too. You have some beautiful stories that you're working with too.
I find that all of the work that I do, it's like instead of just getting a pork chop leg, a bit of pork chop, you get the entire succulent pig. Like all of my stories have like so much to them. I know everyone's gonna be mouth watering hungry after this.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like I give you the 15-course meal because I want you to believe that every single character is real. And I want you to go, oh my God, I have to go visit this place. I need to know what this place is like. And I wrote a story actually set in Maine, but I had to change the location. My publisher pressured me into changing it. And it was a story of, and it's, SIDS doesn't just happen to children, it can actually happen to adults. And the story was about Jason's wife. He goes to bed and his wife passes in the night, and you see this emotional struggle for him trying to save her and him blaming himself the entire time that this is his fault. And you see him go through this grief story, and it's called Finding Love and Hope. And you see him grieve, and you see him bury her, and you see him meet Hope, and Hope leads him back to his faith and back to the church and back to love. And she
Hmm.
teaches him that you can be in love and you can have God in the middle. You can't. It's not a choice of God or love. And
Uh-huh.
and that was the first story I set in Maine. And I wish I'd stuck to my guns and kept it in Maine, because it when we had it as a free download on Amazon, it was fantastic. It was so many downloads that my publisher panicked and she stopped it and she put it on buy because she was terrified that nobody would buy it if it had all been downloaded.
Oh,
And that ended up with it not selling at all. But
oh dear.
that was my first story that I had actually decided to really, instead of it being two people meeting for the first time and falling in love, this was a real deep story that I did about grief and did about finding love and understanding love. Um, and that was because I was reading books by you, by other sort of the romance lines from Mills and Boone, like heartwarming and medical. And it got turned down from Mills and Boone, but I think it's because it was quite a small book. It was a very novella kind of style, but it was the first time I had actually stepped in that direction. So I
Oh,
owe you a great thanks for that, because you're part of the reason that I'm pushing to become a Mills. It's going to be like a badge of honor. I'm going to get like a shirt made up that's going to say Mills and Boone girl, and I'll have like the colors, and I'll have my first photograph taken with like the colors of Mills and Boone in the book. Yeah, I would be one of those sort of fangirl authors that would drive them insane.
oh, that's funny.
But it's that's my passion. If I'm with a company, I give them my, like you, I give them everything I have,
Yeah.
and I push for that. And I think that's why I have an agent now called Eric Miller Lincoln. I nearly screwed that up. And he's doing my YA at the moment. But as he said, I'm somebody that never quits. And I love authors that don't give in. And
Yeah.
you are a prime example of that. You've pushed through everything and now you're successful. You've had 50 years in the business. That is something
Well,
for
yes,
everyone to look up to.
I always want to clarify that I started out writing family living articles in my 20s. You know what I mean?
It
It's like
counts.
I did
It
that. I didn't
counts.
start writing fiction, and that this was an evolution of topics that I wrote nonfiction pieces about, and then I became a nonfiction co-author with experts, and then I became a ghostwriter and a coach and an editor, and all those things were flowing out of that over decades. um
But you, to me, it's like you've done it for 50 years because you have been writing. To me,
yes,
it's not about
yes.
how long you've been publishing, it's about the years that you have physically sat in front of a computer. Even if
Well,
you've had a
yes,
2 year old hanging off your leg and you've
yes,
written what you need to write, that to me is the
right,
admirable part.
right. Well, and when you break in with, I didn't try to go to the big women's magazines at the time to break in. I went into to smaller markets, which which is why I was able to publish earlier, and I didn't
Yeah,
have any notion that I knew how to write the bigger things like the
yeah,
fiction or the bigger books even. That it's a I really looked at my whole trajectory as a going apprenticeship in each stage. And
yeah, of course.
I think that if I were to tell somebody nowadays, if you want to write full time, I believe it is possible, but I do believe that it usually requires you to write in several different areas.
Yeah,
And
I would
maybe you'll
agree
have
with
to write,
that.
if you want to write fiction, you might have to write nonfiction too, because the fiction might not be enough for a full-time living. If you want to make a
Yeah,
full-time living at it, there might be many different directions to go. I'm actually writing about that now too, because I really want to leave that behind, that
yeah.
kind of encouragement for people. When I
No,
say leave that
that's super
behind, I'm not
important.
planning
Yeah.
to leave the business, but I just feel like this 50 years has taught me a lot of things that other people can benefit from too.
And I think that's really important because we're almost keeping the industry going. We're keeping it alive. We're keeping literacy alive. And that's super important.
Hmm.
We were talking about Catherine Cookson before we started recording.
Yes,
She did that. She wrote a book saying, hey, my life freaking sucked. And
yes,
this is how it sucked.
I
And you know
know.
what? I still did it. So why are you complaining? Get on and do it. And that's why I call her my kick up the ass author. Because
Yes,
if she can do it with all the things that she had to deal with, what
yes.
is my excuse? I
She
don't
had
have one.
she had illnesses that were debilitating,
Yep,
seriously debilitating, and yet she kept on pushing through. The only thing I think she decided that she couldn't do more of, as I remember from her memoir, was that she couldn't go out at different times and give talks. She
yep,
had to pull back on that. That
yep.
as much as she was in demand, her illness made it pretty difficult for her, because she would have flare-ups and attacks, and she'd end up bleeding with these. She had a
Yeah.
bleeding disorder, and she ended up in
She
the
was in and out of
hospital.
hospitals as
Yeah.
well, and her mental health, that was really bad, and she couldn't carry a child, she couldn't get pregnant,
Yes.
which a lot of people don't know, and that destroyed her because the only thing that she could consider as her own was her novels. Her
Yes.
novels was her children. And when I heard that, I was like, I'm going to be that person that takes her flag, and for the next 50 years of my life, I'm going
Hmm.
to say, remember this woman. This
Yes.
woman who broke the industry and changed so many lives. Don't you dare forget her. And I hope that my kid keeps it up and it keeps going, and that she almost becomes a Jane Austen, that they teach about her in schools. And
Yes.
because her style is you can't replicate it. There's no
No,
way to
it's
replicate it.
no, and the popular fiction um uh legacies. I mean, I think
Yep.
there are other people with the big with legacies like that too. um, and the whole romance world has legacy authors like that that I think need to be remembered, and
Yeah,
I fear are being forgotten,
I
or
do
as
feel that too.
considered
Yeah.
old fashioned. The other thing is that a lot of times I remember this from when I first joined RWA about 20 years ago, and I'd say, "Oh, I really admire so and so," and people would say, "Well, I don't read her," and I said, "Well, I don't necessarily read her either. Admire her career."
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that there's a big difference between saying I'm going to read everything that a certain author writes because and looking at what she did with her life and how she
Yeah.
managed her career. That you those are the That's where the whole role model thing comes in, where I look
Yes.
at so many writers that I've been reading for a lot of my adult life, and I just admire how they manage their careers.
And I think what we need to be seeing, and I know they're starting to do it in Oxford now, thank goodness, but we need to be seeing modern era writers being used as sort of educational tools.
Uh-huh.
Because Rachel Kane, she got picked, and Oxford did an entire semester on her. I
Uh-huh.
think we need to have sort of not just modules, not just, you know, half a year on a modern day author, but we need to start seeing authors of the 2000s, authors of
Yes.
the 90s, split it up into decades so that people can actually take the time to read that era, but also study it, learn how it changes, how the industry changes, why our writing has to change, why it has to modernize, why we can't, all be Tom Hardings or all be Catherine Cooksons or all be Daniel Steele's. Um, you know, I think that's where the education needs to go now. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to look at the RWA and all these unions because they are the ones that have the power to change what is being taught to the next generation. And it's them that we need to look to and say, we need to try and encourage these universities to offer people more choice in literacy so that we get new editors, so we get new people coming in, and they're younger and they're fresher and they're hungrier and they will, they understand the industry because they've studied it from the 90s straight through, or, what we would call the classics all the way through. And that, okay, that might mean an extra year in university or college, but it's important because they can connect in with the people that they're working with and they can make the industry a better and a more inclusive place.
Right. I
I think
I
I'm on a
agree.
soapbox, so I apologize
No,
now.
I agree. I agree. And the other thing is, I've noticed in the United States now, um, I would say the last 10 years, we're finding new life in what we would call here immigrant fiction,
Yeah,
immigration fiction. And one of the areas and then we're also in conflict fiction too. Some of the writers that I've been reading in the last few years are from Afghanistan. A lot of them might have been born here, but they had family in Afghanistan and they were going back and forth. There are people whose family escaped from Afghanistan. They're writing novels about women escaping the Taliban, and I'm just eating them up. Then there's
yeah, it's
also
amazing.
the Indian American immigrant experience. I just keep finding more and more really wonderful novelists
I must
writing
admit,
in
I
that
would
era.
like to read more Native American work because I think
Well,
their
this
voice
isn't
is
Native
always forgotten.
American. I wasn't thinking Native American, although there's that too. But this is Indian of American people,
Oh, right,
people
yes, yes, I
immigrating
understand what you
families from India, and it really just some of the most wonderful novels that really explore all of those conflicts of the whole immigration life, and we've always had immigrant fiction in the United States anyway. I mean, every
mean.
generation
Yeah,
writes about the newcomers in usually the ethnic groups and so on, and it's just
That that
it
makes me
enriches.
laugh that you say that, because I literally just got done with a series and it triggered something in my head. There was a TV series done here in the UK, and I had no idea it was a series of books, funnily enough. And it's about a family that ends up going to Corfu, and it's about their experiences in Corfu.
Oh yeah,
And I'm just trying to remember what they're called.
it's the Jarrells.
The
The
Jurels,
Jarrells.
yes, that's
Yes,
the one. And it was just like when you were saying that, and I was thinking that, and then I thought to myself, I wonder if she's read the Good Karma Hospital books, which is, it's like an English doctor who then, she goes out to help in India for a year, and then ends up falling in love with the place, and
right.
she ends up staying there, and here's these two British people running this hospital in India with limited resources and limited opportunities. And I fell in love with it. And I
Mhm.
know there's so many people out there who are Indian who don't get that. There's not a lot of Indian TV shows with, lead Indians that's out there, that's good, that
Mhm.
everyone can enjoy. And yeah, I was like, as soon as you said that, I thought, I gotta tell her about this, because
Yeah.
honestly, the characters in that series, it's 4 seasons long, and it's worth every minute that you could watch it for. And it was done by the British production and broadcasting company called ITV, and
Yes.
I don't know if you get ITV Hub over there, but if you if you do, I highly recommend it, because it was just such a groundbreaking series. It really
Well,
was.
we
I
get
just
the
can't remember the book
masterpiece.
name though.
Masterpiece Theater gives us the Jarrells,
Oh,
that whole series, and then because that's a literary family, Lawrence
yeah.
Jarrell, and then I can't remember the other one.
Oh, the youngest one. He
But
went
they're
on to become a famous writer, and he actually ran his own very famous zoo, and did a lot of famous research papers
uh huh.
on on animal studies. And goodness sake, I can't remember his
Yes,
name.
I can't. Yes, right,
I always
right.
wonder, and his sister ended up becoming, this rebel of society who was on cruise ships and lived her entire life at sea. And she passed away just exploring the world on board these cruise ships, which I thought was
Yeah.
just so funny. And then the oldest one, Lawrence, was a spy, and used his literacy skills as a spy. I can't imagine how scary that would have been for him to have been in Corfu and knowing that the Germans was approaching.
Uh huh.
So yeah, I just love that series as well, and I think it's so well done. It's weird
Yes.
because here in the UK, we're we are so hungry for American product, and we
Oh.
get so much American product on offer to us because we've got Netflix and we've got Amazon Prime and we've got Sky, that almost sometimes we forget how good British stuff is. So, like when we get things like Called the Midwife or Downton
Oh.
Abbey or The Gilded Age, is almost like a reminder, hey, our stuff's good too. So I do like to share like things that I've watched and I just fall in love with. The other one, if you get a chance to see it, is Grantchester, which
Oh
is,
yes, we get that. Yeah, and I get it on Amazon Prime too, I think.
yeah, it's great,
Yes.
isn't it? I loved
Yes.
that series.
Yes.
I didn't know about it till like 2 months ago,
Oh.
and I was convalescing, and I couldn't write because I kept falling asleep on my keyboard because I was on such heavy antibiotics. And I ended up starting to watch it, and my father-in-law will come to me with the most ridiculous shows for me to watch,
Yeah.
and I'm like, where did you find this? Like, it'll be something on the BBC or Netflix or ITV, and I'll be like, dude, I don't own a TV, so everything I watch is through the computer. So I almost have to kind of remind him of that. But yeah, and was it the Autonomy of Scandal was one he came to me with. And I know I have the book in the house. I haven't read it, and I didn't want to watch it before I read the book, because the way
Uh-huh.
the book's always better.
Yeah.
And then they were like, no, you gotta watch it because it's the actress from Downton Abbey plays the lead.
Oh,
And I was like, well, damn, I gotta watch it now.
yes.
So that was me, and I watched it, and I couldn't stop watching it. I think like Ian was like waking up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still watching it, and he's like, "Go to sleep,"
Oh, I
because I got
know.
really into it. And it was the same with the Bridgerton series. I adored. It was fun. It was nice to watch a period drama that was just lighthearted and fun. There are serious topics that they do talk about in it, but it was nice to have it fun and just to have something to get lost in.
Yeah.
And I can now safely say on this podcast that I actually have been mentored, luckily, as a writer, as a screenwriter. I have been under the mentorship of Shonaland, and it's the vice president of Shonaland Creative that's
Wow.
actually been mentoring me. And I've been a part of the 1 in 4 Writers program, collation program, that's designed to bring more disabled writers into writer rooms to make it a more
Oh,
inclusive industry and have it less about what minority boxes we tick and more about the people that actually work in the industry. So I'm very glad to be the face of that.
yes.
Uh, it feels a lot of responsibility. I must admit, when I started it, I was like, "What am I getting myself in for?" Um, as it does with anything I do to promote disabled writers. But yeah, so I'm recommending anybody out there who wants to expand all their writing and who maybe is struggling with dyslexia or other disabilities like health issues, please look up 1 in 4 writers correlation because they
Uh-huh.
really are making a huge difference to everybody out there. Um, and I hopefully in a couple more months I'll be able to tell you the results of my mentorship program. But right now
Yes.
it seems to be going quite well. And that's what
That's
you were talking
wonderful.
about, going into every other area of writing that you can to make a living.
Right. Exactly. And actually, there's a very big area now is coaching.
Yeah,
Coaching other people. I used to call it just being a consultant and an editor and critiquer, that sort of thing. But now it falls under the whole rubric of of coaching,
yeah,
and that is, that's a really um, that's a really rich area now. And because people, I noticed that before they submit their their novels these days, they have developmental editors, coaches, copy editors. A lot of people
I know.
will
I see it
will
on
do
Fiverr
this.
all the time, and I'm like, wow, like how can you afford all these people? Like,
I wonder too. I mean, I really do. But I didn't see that so much in Romance Writers of America, but I do see it. Of course, that was my most active years there were a few years ago, but I do see it a lot in the Women's Fiction Writers Association, where an awful lot of people are getting outside coaching as they're writing. And
yeah,
working with people, you can really see how quickly people catch on to some of the basics like point of view or showing and not telling and plotting and things like that. Once they're just shown a few tricks or a few principles, or this is how we present dialogue, it isn't done this way, it's done this way. Some of it is very basic, but um, it helps people with the presentation of what they're going to send to agents and
that's
publishing
incredible.
houses and doing for their indie publishing too.
Yeah, I look at I must be the only one that looks at the prices and think, how do you afford all that? Like, but I understand a lot of them take out business grants and business loans, and they make it into a business. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too scaredy, but I work with people who I trust, and I hope that I present the best projects, and
Hmm.
I just go for it. And I think that's the old way of doing it, and I'm quite happy with the old way of doing it, and I don't really want to change it. So that's just me, though. I get stuck in my ways sometimes, and I'm only 33, so
Well, I just think that some of these things have been adaptations to the changes within the industry
Yeah.
and to the opening up of opportunities with the independent publishing world. People
Yes.
now, we know that independent publishing has great value, but it has to be done in a real high quality way, or it
Yes.
will go by the wayside because people people will say, well, I'd rather read something that I know has been read by other people, and that is
Yes.
done more carefully too.
Because they're
And
worried about
independent
money as
publishing,
well. Yeah.
it's a big, huge world now. I encourage people to get into all of this. You can
Yeah,
have
I do
a
too.
career that is both traditionally published and independently published, and
And there's
combine
nothing
those.
wrong with it to be independently
Not at
published
all.
either.
Not at all.
It
In
should
fact,
that
I
shouldn't be a
believe
stigma
that's the
either.
future. I believe that that's what most careers are going to be in the future.
Yeah, and I keep trying to kind of like install that in people. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
how you're published; it's what you've published that matters.
Yes.
Um, has there been a book recently that you've read that you would say has really stuck with you that you just haven't quite shaked?
I've read several things lately that have stuck with me. And one of them is a book by an author. I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I got her name right. Tracy Garvis Graves,
All
and
right,
she wrote a book called the Girl He Used to Know, and it kind of
I do
deals.
know that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it is an absolutely fabulous book about a person which we might say could be on the spectrum, maybe Asperger's, where
Yeah.
she can't relate socially,
Yeah.
and it has consequences throughout her entire life. And then she does some really heroic things, and it was like a real page turner to me. The other one, the other one that made an enormous, I when I wrote it down that I'd read it, I put asterisks there, to say, was a book called the Storyteller's Secret, and it's
Oh.
by an author, Sejal Badani, and she's uh, Indian American, but I believe she might have actually been born in India and is a new American.
Oh, immigrant.
And
Yeah.
she goes back, um, to India for particular reasons, to discover particular things about her family. And it was another one of these where I just couldn't soak it up fast enough.
Yeah.
I just loved it.
Those are
Um,
the best. Those are the
yeah,
ones that really make
yes,
reading worthwhile. So yeah, I
yeah.
would love
And
to
then,
read about those.
I have favorite authors. Barbara O'Neill is one of them, and her book, she has a new one out, or it's coming out, and I haven't read it yet. But her book just before this one was called When We Believed in Mermaids, and it's about
Oh, I like
sisters that get
that.
separated and find each other in New Zealand. So it has a
Oh,
nice
okay.
setting
Yeah.
in New Zealand, and I like her. I've read all her books. She has these cool titles.
She
This
does. Yeah.
The Secret Recipe for Happiness, and How to
Oh.
Bake a Perfect Life was another one.
How do you not
And
get
she's
hungry reading it though? Like
yeah,
that makes my
she's
stomach
a
grumble.
foodie. She's a foodie. She does this really rich sensory food stuff in all of her novels.
Yeah, I get told off for having so much food in mine, but I have it for a reason. I have it for a reason. It's to remind me to eat. So I have all these food scenes planned out, and everyone thinks I'm doing these elaborate meals, and it's nothing to do with that.
uh,
It's because I have to remind myself to eat while I'm writing.
yeah. Well,
So yeah,
I do like books um, that use sense that are sensory rich, and sure, in hers
yes,
it isn't just food, but it's also color
hmm,
um, and the feel of things, and wind on the face sort of thing.
yeah,
She's just very good. And I've also, when I look back on my reading life, I realize how Oh, I used to read so much Susan Howich, Cashel Mara, and Penn Merrick. Those books that are like 1,000 pages long.
Yes.
And I read those in the 70s and 80s. And they're those British epics. And we always, it was so many Americans, like so many, I like those God is an Englishman, the
Yep.
big
Yep.
to serve them all my days. I like Maeve Binchy too, Rosamund Pilcher, all of those uh, real epic British writers.
See, I read a lot this year. I would say I've read more than I normally do. But there was a book at the end of last year that I read called Hamilton by Catherine Cookson. And I still cannot get that book out of my head. No
Oh,
matter what I've read, nothing is shifting it. Because the idea of it's a trilogy, and there's a horse that she mentally creates when she's dealing with trauma, stress, abuse, right? I can't get it out of my head. Nothing
oh,
else is
yeah.
sticking the way that this book is stuck. And it's driving me a bit crazy because at the moment I'm writing about horses, and I have this funny Hamilton horse that takes the piss out of everybody in the book running around my little story, and I'm like trying to ignore him because that book that I read is just so ingrained, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna lose my temper. But it's funny because I didn't start writing Ride with Me until I read Diana Palmer's Wyoming series,
Oh,
and I think it was book 7 I read because I didn't realize it was a series. I thought it was like a standalone.
mm-hmm.
So I don't know how I got it. I think I got it through a friend, or somebody gave it to me, and I read it, and I was just I just said, oh my gosh, that's my kind of voice. I want to write with like that. I want to show my voice in this way. So that's why I started writing a contemporary, heartwarming one. And I didn't think anyone would want to read it. And I entered Pitch Mad, which all of us have to do. And I got hearted by two of the editors at Mills and Boone. So
Uh-huh.
now it's kind of like the pressure's on. I got to deliver. And I'm like, and I was in the group because there's a writers group on Facebook. And I was in there and I literally wrote, I am terrified to submit this, people. Help. So they really good. They were so supportive. They coached me through it. And some of them have messaged me and say, have you heard yet? Have you heard yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't heard yet. So hopefully by the time that this podcast comes out, we'll have heard.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. Yes.
And because to me, Mills and Boone is a family. It's like being accepted into a family. It's an amazing place to be and a place to work. And
Hmm.
that's been my dream goal, is to land somewhere as beautiful and as welcoming as it is there, and to not be worried about my own sort of obstacles I have to overcome. So yeah, fingers crossed. But no, it's so that was the thing that I couldn't get out of my head. If you had infinite time and you could sit and enjoy one author and one series, who would it be, and which series would you choose?
One author, one series.
It's a bit of a toughie.
Hmm. Well, um, I have enjoyed the Nantucket books of two
Oh,
authors,
okay.
Nancy Fair and Ellen Hildebrand.
Right.
And both of them, and they write connected. Some of the books are connected books. They're
Yep.
not series as in romance series, but both of them write, they'll write about this family, where there's a sister and a cousin, and there's two books,
Hmm.
and both of and I love their setting, and it's made me very aware of my settings. I choose them pretty carefully and create them. I Nantucket is its own setting, and it has a romance to it, and just the you
Yeah.
just say it and people know it's this island. And I love islands. I lived on an island in Maine, and then I set my St. Anne series down in the Georgia Golden Isles. I just made up an island and after one of them, resembling one of them, because I love islands.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about the Nancy Thayer and Ellen Hildebrand. They just they own that setting, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so taken with them.
Oh, I love that. And would that be your author as well that you would pick to read, or
Both of
is it a different one?
those authors, yeah, both of them. You can't get me down to one.
I was giving it a good old try.
You were, but I don't know. One is just, if you read a lot, one author is just not quite, going to do
It
it.
doesn't
And
cut it,
both of them,
no.
yeah, and both of those women have written lots of books, so that means I can read for a long time on this in this just the two of them.
Yeah, of course. Is there an author, past and present, who's influenced and inspired you to read and to write? If so, who were they and what was it that got you excited about both of those things?
Well, Nancy Thayer is one of them in my adult life.
Yeah,
Um, and really what she writes is what I started writing, which is, they would call it women's fiction today, but
yeah,
really it's family drama love story. That's what I called it for a very long period of time, family drama love story.
yeah,
And um, she wrote, uh, now not all of the first books actually were Nantucket settings, but those were her
yeah,
more famous ones later. Um, but she inspired me because they were full stories that involved um, extended family, or women finding themselves, women leaving bad situations to find better ones. All of those modern dilemmas. Women finding careers, women finding work, um,
yeah.
work of their own. Uh, Absolutely, I would say that that's certainly. Um, and then like I said, I would say that the those women who wrote those kind of long epic tales too also influenced me. If with the idea of, oh, I would love to write this book that goes on for 1,000 pages and connects the generations, and the big
Yeah, of
family saga
course.
type books too. Those all of those inspired me as well.
Oh, I love that answer because it's you're after my own heart on that one, and I think that's because I was in love with Catherine growing up. What genre do you feel most drawn to when you visit the library, bookshop, or online bookstores? Where is it that you instantly find yourself?
I have more recently, what I'm calling women's fiction now, like I said, was called family drama love story, and was considered mainstream fiction. Women
Yeah,
mostly wrote it, women mostly read it. It was mainstream fiction, and I'm still drawn to those stories. There are some that people are calling domestic suspense, where a woman finds out that her husband is missing, and then he's got a million secrets, and you know and she might be in danger now, and that sort of thing. Women in
yeah.
some kind of peril, but not necessarily romantic suspense with serial killers and that sort of thing.
Oh,
I'm not
right, okay.
real drawn to a lot of that. I'm more drawn to, well, a person a woman who suddenly has a missing child, and
Yeah,
and and the whole book is about finding the child, but also all the different reasons why she would be under suspicion. And
yeah.
I think I could identify with what that must be like.
Yeah, no, it's scary. In fact, I know a lot of people who are just moms that will read it because it's their worst nightmare. So I
Yes.
I like it when somebody dives into something that's totally different and can provide a totally different perspective. Has there been a book that you've actually picked up and you started reading and you couldn't really put it down, but you thought, why am I reading this? What was I thinking?
Well, there've been an awful lot of them like that, where I just kept turning the pages. And actually, um, I'm not going to be able to remember the title of it now, but some people will probably get this connection. There was a woman who is from Afghanistan, or she's an Afghani American, and she was on CNN as a correspondent. And I saw her books in the YA section, and she has a book, and I will find it and email the title to you. She has a book about, which is like a Romeo and Juliet story in war torn Afghanistan. Honest to God, I thought I couldn't, I would stay up. I read it all in one day. I let everything else go. I had to find out what was going to happen to those two young people.
Yeah,
And here's the one I can't remember the name of. I was actually looking for it and I couldn't find it in my list of books either. But I will get it to you, because it was just one of those where the people, where you think to yourself, oh, don't do that, you're in too much danger. Oh,
yep,
don't go there and try to meet over there. Oh, you're somebody's going to get killed. And of course, in this kind of a story, somebody does get killed. I mean, there's just all kinds of danger and peril that these people are in. On on a quieter way, though, that book I was telling you about, the storyteller's secret,
yeah,
where this woman goes to her roots and finding her family in India, that had that same effect on me. I was turning the pages, and
yeah.
just couldn't put it down.
I know that feeling because I can't read my own stuff, which is awful. Once it is done, it's edited and it's in the world. I can't reread it, and I don't know why that is. I just can't. And it's funny you say that because I got very conflicted over the inspiration for my book called Marie's World, and it was inspired by a man known as Matt Hardy. And Matt Hardy is a famous actor and wrestler. And he made me very conflicted over the series because it's so different. Marie's
Mm.
World is designed to be that different story. And it's sports romance at a time when sports romance didn't exist.
Uh-huh.
So I was the first person to do a wrestling love story on my own with a wrestler as my co-author, and I can tell you it was the scariest 5 books. I've never finished the series. I did 5 of the books. I released 5 of the books. We wrote the rest, but we never went any further. And I did have people that were really on television that were really big supporters of the series, but it never took off. But that
Oh,
was my out of the ordinary story that I like to tell people. When they say I look for a book that's really different and really grabs me and just wants to take me on a different ride, I feel bad because I'm always saying to people, well, try Marie's World because you've got twin sisters who turn on each other. One publishes the other's diaries to the world. You've got estranged husbands, you've got love triangles, you've got secrets, you've got shooting, you've got all of this stuff that happens in 5 books. And then you have the dads, every character has their say in the story. So you've got the dads in one book and him talking about losing his wife and giving up his twin daughters to drive trucks. And then you've got Marie and Layla feeling like they've been abandoned and their story. And then you've got Amber, who didn't even know her dad was a wrestler, didn't know she had a different dad to her family her brothers. And that's her own story, and a story about how she doesn't trust them and she doesn't trust this new dad. But she desperately wants to be a part of their family because she knows that she doesn't really fit in hers. And every one of my stories has that conflict. And that's what I'm saying. If you like something that's totally out there, totally different, you won't find another story like it. Trust me. I've looked. I recommend giving it a try. And
yeah.
it's only four. I mean, it's five books, and one basically two is prequels. But it really is about I have built this entire universe. And even wrestlers say it's like they open the book and it's like they're actually at work. They're in a locker room.
Uh-huh.
They can see this happening. They can imagine living it. And they're thinking, oh my God, this is like our worst nightmare having a book come out that not only tells this girl's secrets, but she tells the secrets of two of the top wrestlers and the owner of a wrestling company. And she just outs everybody in one go. And then she's got to go and work with this company. And her sister's like, oh shit, I have to go protect my twin from this evil guy. But I'm married to this evil guy and I love this evil guy. And the conflict, is all about the conflict. It's not really, I don't feel.
I can't hear you. You're, I can't hear you.
So yeah, so when I talk about doing, I don't even know what Marie's World would have been classed as. I never
Mhm.
cared about it. I said I was going to do the story and I did it. Um, but I think you would probably class it as women's fiction, maybe
Uh-huh.
because it is
Sounds
just
like it.
conflict based. Yeah,
Sounds like it. And the way they're defining women's fiction now is the most important part of the story is the woman's journey. It's her
yeah,
change. It's her arc. Now she may fall in love. She may have a family. She may be a nurse in the war. But whatever her particular arc is, whatever her particular journey is, the most important. I think that's also why we're seeing so much first person
yeah.
fiction. And I like first person fiction. I've been writing quite a bit of it myself, other than the romance, because I like it myself.
I like it too, and I think for me, when I walked away from Marie's World, which kind of broke my heart because I wanted to finish it, we had actually planned for it to be a 32 book series, and we only did five, which, I hated walking away, but I understood I needed to do it for my career and for me to be able to do it at a later date. And it's weird because I don't promote it as much as I should. But at least now, like, I can say to you, you can go out at some point and you can pick it up and you can read it and you can get to visit a world that I mean, I can't see you turning on the wrestling and watching it because it's not a world you know. But I give you the opportunity to come into the world and experience it for a little bit of time, but in a way
Mhm.
you can understand it. And my idea really was to bring wrestling and romance together because wrestling is one of the oldest forms of sports entertainment in the world. And of course, romance is one of the oldest forms of literacy in the world. And these are
Yeah,
$2 billion industries. I don't understand why these two are not connected before me. So
yeah,
I went out of my way and I've sewn them together and okay, it didn't take off, but at least I know that I've given some eyes to wrestling and wrestling has had some look at my romance and I do know that there's now a higher majority of females watching wrestling,
yes,
and it is because of romance novels doing football, basketball,
that's true.
wives of footballers wives
Hockey
and stuff like
players
that.
too.
Yeah,
Hockey is a big one for that. Yeah, and then of
yeah,
course, actually, football, soccer, as depending on where we are.
yeah.
That's such a global. That's a global. Uh,
It was so weird
that
because
has
I
reached
didn't.
that way beyond what American baseball has its reach,
Yeah,
which is why you do see it. It I think that's very interesting though that you say like the people don't know the wrestling world. Well, we don't know a lot of the things we're immersed in. I don't know anything about sheep ranching either, but I wanted to set the books on a sheep ranch.
Yeah.
I mean,
Unfortunately, I actually did dive into that wrestling world. I went and I mentored under somebody, and I was actually told I could never be a professional wrestling writer, script writer, because I was female.
oh,
And I took that sexism comment and I do name the guy because I think it's wrong that he did what he did and said what he said. But my point of view on this is that I go out and I promote it. I promote, hey, I'm a female. I wrote a very successful wrestling series, and yeah, I'm female, guys. But female writers can sometimes be the best writers you have. Why are you not opening up your doors to more writers that are
hmm
female? I
hmm
mean, we're more dedicated than most. So, wrestling world, wake up. You gotta see that females is the way to go in the future. And if you want your business to keep growing and to keep expanding, time to let the girls in the back and do what they do best and not just treat us like arm candy. Because guess what? We've
well,
got
that's
brains
true.
too.
With the fan
Yeah.
base for any sport, and of course,
Hmm.
now that the sports have opened up more, where women play more, look
Yeah.
at, I mean, that that helps too. But the
It
Olympics,
does.
certainly help
Yeah.
spread the word about certain kinds of sports too.
I mean, I'm proud because I look at All Elite Wrestling, and on there they have the first ever Native American transgender woman wrestling, and that is history because
Uh-huh.
she made the change. She broke into the industry and she wrestles and she represents that set of people because there's nothing scarier than trying to be yourself in this day and age. There really isn't. And I admire her for that. And I
Yeah.
admire wrestling for that because they support their gay wrestlers. They support their, all the different types of walks of life that come in. I mean, there was a wrestler sleeping in his car because he was so loved what he did. And when one of the boys discovered that that's what he was doing, he opened his door to him and said, "Hey, I got a spare room. You can stay with me. You got your new contract. Get on your feet. I don't care about your drama or your baggage. Let's, focus on wrestling. Let's do that." It is for anybody that's in that industry, it's a fraternity. It's like being a part of a huge family. And if there's a wrestler that comes to town, you're guaranteed he knows at least 10 people in that town that can buy him dinner if he's short on
Uh-huh.
money. They take care of each other. And that's almost what kind of drove me with this podcast is I hope that as writers, we can start taking care of each other too and make
hmm
it so that we all succeed rather than it being this, I call it the rat race to who can make the most money fastest. I think it needs to be more about let's support each other as we go on this journey together rather than make it just about money. So
Well, I think
going
the
into
women's
your writing and into your writing career, how did you go about creating sort of the darker elements in your story, like the obstacles they had to overcome and the things that they had to endure?
that's probably the hardest part for me because I
Yeah.
want I want it all to wrap up in a nice happy ending. So I've had to work on that. Um, I probably in some of my women's fiction that conflict is easier to build in. One of the books that where there's one of your questions was there a character that you want to write more about is there I've got two and both of them were the young people. And the conflict in the one particular book, Amber Light, is that this is a woman who was a victim of an assault and has to start her life completely over. And everything is a challenge. And she has this young child, and she's this young one. All her plans for her life completely go awry. And and so building in that conflict was probably easier than in any of the romance because it started with such a um, serious tragic challenge. You know, this is this is what has to happen now. So she has is forced into to change. And I think that's the same way the other young person, this one was really a teenager, this character rather. She's 13 and her mother is very sick. And
Yeah.
her whole life revolves around trying to get her mother better. And she becomes a catalyst for a whole cast of characters that ends up bringing them all together because of this secret quest that she's on to get her mother better. And it's quite a, and so the conflict there was not that difficult because it starts out with such a serious um, premise.
Oh, okay. I like the way that you kind of explain that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
you put the premise there. In fact, with the one book, Amber Light, the other book's Island Healing, the one had mentioned before, with the young teenager, she's the catalyst of the whole thing. I think about that teenager all the time. I mean, and I think about Sarah in Amber Light. I think about that journey all the time. She's a character that never goes away, and the characters in those books never go away. I mean, they're just always there. I'm always thinking about what their lives are now. A friend teases me all the time because I think of them off living their lives. Oh, they've got more kids, or they've grown up, or they've done various things. But they both had really serious, big time conflicts that started. And a friend of mine was saying, I let Sarah and Amber Light get one easy thing, she said, oh no, no, she got that too easily. You know, she didn't like it that I made her, and so she said, no, you gotta go back. She was like the sweetheart. So I had to make that a little harder, for her. But
Yeah.
it's very challenging to make things hard for characters for me. I like them so much. I don't want bad things to happen. I have to keep putting it, ahead of myself. It's gonna be okay in the end.
Yeah, no, I love that. I even like the quirkiness of that.
Yeah.
What inspired you to enter the romance world with your own voice? Was there a specific thing that drew you into it?
When I realized that I would be better off learning to write fiction than I really did, it, even though I had been a nonfiction writer for 30 years. Um,
Yeah.
if I decided I wanted to write fiction, I really had to learn. And I was doing too much of the mainstream type fiction and wasn't really learning enough about the craft. And romance seemed, and I started to write these longer romances and then finally series romance when I realized that there were openings in places like the Harlequin Heartwarming, that they were looking for story. And I thought, oh, this my very first time I said, oh, this could be a Harlequin Heartwarming. And I wrote it specifically for that market and got it. And when it was
Ah.
accepted, it was just real exciting. And I proposed two other books. It was a series, and and that's what kind of put me over into it because I was always writing the love story kind of aspect, and then I
Yeah.
just shifted into that more romance structure with some of the stories. But family drama love story is just an expanded way of doing romance in a way.
I like that. I do like that a lot. I think that's kind of awesome actually. When you write your book, is it like a jigsaw puzzle that you're like putting all the pieces together, or is it very much like a movie and you're just sort of writing down what you see?
I like the movie approach. I think I see it all visually, and while I do have to go in and fill in scenes, and the story doesn't always come together, I mean, I try to do some planning, um, but I would say it's more like a movie because I see it as a movie. I see the characters moving around. I hear
Yeah.
them. I hear them and see them in dialogue.
That's cool. I like that because it's very much like a movie for me as well. So it's nice to share that with someone.
Yeah.
What characters stayed with you the most or the longest?
Well, these this Lila is her name. Lila
Yeah,
Saint. Her last name's Saint, and she's 13. And this what she does to try to help her mother who has MS,
yeah,
and she wants to get her mother better. And what she does to find that help ends up bringing other all these other characters that are the main characters. She's a secondary character, but
yeah,
in a way, I don't even believe in secondary characters. In certain ways, she's so important to it. But there was something about her that stuck with readers. This 13-year-old who was willing to take so many risks and keep secrets and everything else in order to make the mother better. And when she did come out and be upfront about it, the way the doctor's offices sort of patronized her internet research that she found some, and instead of being compassionate toward her, they were sometimes very dismissive of her. So she learned how to keep secrets with it. And I just think
yeah.
about her all the time, and she makes an appearance in book two, and she's going to have the main. She's going to be one of the main characters in book three of the series. So I didn't want to ever let that particular character go. And then the other
Yeah.
character is Sarah Whitman, who you see her from this 18-year-old pregnant teenager, addicted to carbohydrates, to a 26-year-old who has become a mother and educated herself, found the book, found it. And then her terror about being around men that has to be
Mhm.
worked through during the 8 years. So her child is born and then the child is eight when it's a 10. And I will probably write about her again too because um, there's another character, the secondary character, who really has been demanding one story. And then this young this young girl, Amber, is going to at some point need to find out about the father. So that's another book. So I might have three in that, uh, in that
Ah,
particular series, which takes place that's an ocean island kind of series too. That's South Carolina. Oh,
cool. I like that. And I was just gonna ask the next question, which is there a character that you wish that you could have written more about? I guess you kind of answered that.
yeah, I can't let. There are characters that I
Unless you
just
have
don't
another
want to.
one you want to answer with, or
Well, let's see. Who will I write about again? Well, I've got what I call my lighter side romance, the Jack Foster Heart, and that is Jack and Lorna, and they're in their 50s, and they marry on an impulse on a cruise, and
yeah,
then their grown kids don't like it, and that makes kind of for fun, and it's got a lot of nostalgia, 60s, 70s nostalgia in it. And
yeah,
she has a best friend, and I'm going to write about her, or I thought I was. Now that you're talking to me about it, I think I probably will. And then she has a daughter that I will also meet her own story. I might do those as novellas, but
yeah.
but
Well,
Lorna
I mean, as long as
and
they come
Jack
out.
will come into it because Jack has this nostalgic cafe that's kind of the center of town. He also rescues elderly dogs,
All
and
right.
so these dogs are around, and I mean I always want to write about the dogs and the horses too. I mean
Yeah, I
I
love
don't,
them.
whatever, I always want to write about the pets. Bring them back
I love the
too.
animals, and I think it's sad because like I end up always trying to like I couldn't write an animal in Marie's world, and I remember feeling almost like that was what was missing was like her companion dog or a
Uh-huh.
companion kitten or whatever, and I couldn't because she moves around so much. She never stays in one place for any length of time. So I couldn't have her have one, and then I was going to have Layla have one, and I was like, no, because Layla's going to start moving around all the time now too, and it's not fair to the animals. So I never gave them it, but yeah, I love having animals in my stories.
Yeah, you
What?
figure somebody needs to have them. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
don't.
we all need a pet in some
Yeah,
regards. Like
actually, I
that's
don't
our
have one
comforts.
myself. I don't
Oh, do
have
you not?
a pet. No, I know I don't have a dog. Never owned a dog. Had cats years and years ago, but I really, I like to. I haven't moved around in terms of actually
Yeah.
moving my location in a while, but I like the idea of getting in the car and going somewhere on the spur of the moment, and I just have
Yeah,
not
not
wanted to
worrying about the animal,
complicate.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, we'll have to, listeners, we'll have to organize a kitten or something cute and furry for Virginia so that she's not lonely. Make sure she's got a friend she can talk to.
no, that's why I write them. They become so real to me that the horses, the dogs, the cats, they're all my friends and pets.
Oh, I like that. What techniques have you found most helpful, and were there ones that you wish you hadn't tried?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Has there been writing techniques that you found helpful, and were there ones that you wish that you hadn't tried?
I have tried them all. I am not an extensive outliner. I can't sit and do real extensive outlining. I am glad, however, that I tried the Save the Cat 15 beat method. I like
Right.
that. Jessica Brody, I really like that. I also, though, for productivity, I think there's lots of different ways to plot and tell stories, outline, not outline, all of that. But for productivity, in my coaching practice, actually, that's where I've really seen the most changes in other people when they have
Right.
problems getting started. I like book in a week, book in a month, and 100 words in 100 days. And just briefly, April Kilstrom came popularized this method book in a week. And the idea is to take a week of your life and not schedule anything else. If you have to work, if you have family, fine, you do all that. But every minute around all of that time, you spend writing and you just write. You don't go back, you do the fast first draft method, which I also believe in. Not going back to edit what you just wrote, 2 days ago or any of that. I believe in going forward and getting the first draft down. And book in a week and book in a month, which is the same principle, is are the ways that I found the best way to do fast first draft. 100 words in
Oh,
100 days is good for getting a book started when you're working on other things.
yeah.
And almost an or, this is where a lot of people have talked to me about it, when they're kind of blocked and they say, I don't have time, I can't have time for this. You can always write 100 words. And if you wrote
Yeah.
100 words for 100 days, you have 10,000 words. So,
That's very true. And it
yeah,
feels easier than doing the whole nano thing, because nano sometimes feels like it's so much pressure. Like
yes,
it is a lot of pressure, and sometimes it kind of takes me out at the knees, and then I try to catch up, and it's almost like you're always trying to catch up. So like I like the fact that 100 days does seem easier, and it does seem more kind of like I would say achievable would be the word that I'm desperately searching for. So yeah,
these are all
I'm
doable.
curious about this. Yeah, I'm
They're all
curious.
doable. The 100 words in 100 days, the trick there is that almost any time you start doing that, you go over 100 words. Now,
Yeah,
maybe what happened, actually, the first book that ended up my Harlequin, the first book of the first Harlequin series, Girl in the Spotlight, that was 100 words in 100 days book. That started that way. And then when I finished the
okay.
project, then I went back to it and then I got it going. I mean, there have been a couple of books like that are already, out that
Yeah.
started out that kind of book. And I might have written 300 words that first day and maybe 120 the second day and maybe
Yeah.
200 the third day. They keep piling up and you keep finding the story. And then you can make all kind of notes to yourself too, add in more here, this needs this, what am I going to do with this character? Where this
Mhm.
something needs something would make something needs to happen here, I'll say, get
Yeah,
him
of
in
course.
action. But those are really good productivity tools.
Yeah. No, I like that. Because I think a lot of the time, like, people who do take on nano, sometimes we think, oh, yeah, this was a really good idea. And then we're like, oh, no, it's not. Oh, what was I thinking? And then you get into, like, I always say, a state of panic. And, you need somebody almost to kind of, like, grab you, pull you out of that state of panic and say, no, it's okay. It's a lot, but you can get there. Um, so yeah, no, I think the 100 words feels more easier to achieve than, you know, not doing anything at all. So yeah, I
Well,
find
and
that good.
nano, a book in a month, I would say to people, sure, go for it. Just go however many words you can possibly do. People seem to like it. What I would recommend
It
with
is, yeah.
some of those things, like a nano, is to
Yep.
stay off of the uh, groups that form where everybody's checking in with everybody all the time. Those take a lot of time away.
I
You know.
don't. I don't ever go in there. And I think that's because I know if I go in there, then that's me gone for the entire day and I'm screwed.
Yeah,
So I
I think
don't go in there at all. I feel so
right.
awful because I don't. But
I know.
yeah, I think I've just learned a lot of lessons. Like, I used to always have my Twitter open and my Facebook open, and I would talk to people, and I would, interact with all the readers constantly. And then I realized, what am I doing? Because 90% of, my writing time is now having these conversations, is,
Uh-huh.
spending time getting involved in conversations so people are recognizing my name and recognizing the material that I want to talk about and the material I find interesting. And I just realized just like how much of my time I was wasting. And yeah, but I still feel bad because I still feel like that was what I was known for, was being able to write and do the fan interaction at the same time. But it's just not something that I found feasible later
Well,
in life. And
you're protecting your health too, so you
yeah,
have to be careful.
I really have to protect my health now. Whether I want to or not, it's kind of being forced upon me. So, as my husband says, for goodness sake, stop trying to do everything. And I am
Right.
one of these writers that's really hard on myself because I'm like, oh, my house is a mess. Why have I not cleaned up? Oh, yeah, that's because I was writing today. And then having that guilt of my house isn't tidy and my floors aren't hoovered and I've not done the dishes today. Like, those kind of guilts. And then I
Yes,
get
I
super
do.
hard on myself. Yeah. And I have to learn not to. I'm still learning, like, not to get kind of upset about it because it's ridiculous. I
Yeah.
can't do everything. But I think that's the youthful side of me that's like, oh, yeah, we can do everything. So, going into your life, this is where everybody gets to know you as a human being and as a person. What is the first thing that you do when you need to just de stress from everything, whether it's editing or writing? What is your way of just letting everything go and just relaxing?
I like to walk. I like to drink coffee out with
Oh, I
friends.
love coffee.
I like I like to read and I like to watch series and I go to the library just because it's there. And I browse in the library that's not far away. But I in the decent weather I walk a lot.
My
You know,
my
I'll go
my
out
favorite
to walk.
my favorite house was across from a library.
Yeah,
My
I was
library
a
knew me
librarian
better than
too.
anybody else because I was
Yeah,
constantly going in and I said, "Do you want to read my book?" And I had all the libraries, librarians read it, and I encouraged everyone. But I was never out of there. And Ian was like, "For goodness sake, the library is not your second home." And of course, because we've moved away and I can't get to any libraries now, I'm in the country and we have the most unreliable bus service because I can't drive. We don't have a bus service technically because you're never guaranteed it's going to go at the times it says. Like, sometimes it can be up to 55 minutes late for your stop. And I don't have that kind of energy to stand for 55 minutes and wait for this bus.
Yes.
So I don't go as much as I used to. But I love going into libraries and bookshops. And my husband, he literally pulls his hair out because he's like, Crystal, for sake, like we cannot get any more books in this house. Um, and I actually just broke to him last night that I've got publisher sending me 8 arcs, and he was like, "How many?" I was like, "8 arcs." He's like, "Where are we putting this next bookcase
Yeah.
that you've obviously planned?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sure you can find somewhere."
Yeah.
And he just sort of looks at me as if to say, "You're freaking unbelievable." But he honestly, I think he spent more time building bookcases than he's done anything in his life.
Yeah. You can
He,
see here with where I'm
yep,
sitting. That's
he
a
was a
whole
shop
wall.
fitter. He reckons he's put in more bookshelves since leaving his shop fitter's job than he ever put in when he was there.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, and anytime Christmas comes up, he knows exactly what to buy me: bookcases.
Yes. Yes.
Do you have the same problem as me with the Tower of Pisa of books that you've got to read and it's sort of like leaning over your bed?
Oh, yes. Well, and then I have this library shelf behind me, and those are the library books. And I renew them and
Yep,
I take them back and I write them down and say, well, I'll have to get them another time. Don't have time now. But I take
yep.
of books out. And I do, I think like a lot of writers, I do like to hang out with other people, particularly writers.
Well,
And
my
that's,
my dream is to meet you all at the
yeah,
romance convention in America. I want
yeah,
to walk in and just hug everyone and say, "Oh my God, we've had all these conversations. I get to see you, meet you now,"
absolutely.
and just go to the dinners and talk to everybody. It's so weird because I've been invited to do 2 tables and I've never been able to make it out.
Oh,
And
uh-huh.
one of the tables that they wanted me to do was with a woman called Sarah Humphreys, and she was a New York bestseller for adult fantasy. And she had these group of friends, and she was wanting to put this table together. And I was going to kind of be the odd one out because I didn't have an adult fiction out. I only had like a YA thing. And they were like, "But Crystal, your attitude towards story writing is what would make it the most interesting round table." And I thought, yeah, no, I would be the one sitting in the corner taking notes, like ooh, ooh, But that's the dream is to come out and just see you guys and just say hi, and you will know that I'm there because I'm loud. I may be small, but it doesn't matter where I am. You will hear me because I don't seem to recognize volume. I don't seem to have an indoor voice. And I was did you ever play the Chinese whisper game at school? Where you sit in a circle and you would whisper something in somebody's ear and it would go into the next ear, and then you'd wait
Uh-huh.
to hear what it was
Oh,
at the
yes.
end. Everybody knew I whispered because I wasn't very good at the quiet.
Uh-huh.
They were like,
Oh, that's funny.
"Oh, Crystal said that," and I was like, so I used to always be the kid with the grumpy face because like yeah, everyone heard me everywhere. I was kind of legendary for the fact that I sounded like, was it I got nicknamed? I was the pixie because they never quite knew when I was going to pop up.
Oh, well, yeah, yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
And I'm pocket size apparently. I don't know if that's a compliment though, pocket size.
Well, I
What
used to
hobbies?
be pocket sized too myself. I'm small too.
Everything comes best in small packages. The
Yes,
best packages
yes,
are small.
that's right.
That's why I say. So what hobbies do you enjoy, and is there any that you wish you had either tried or you want to try?
Well, years ago, I made clothes. I made my kids' clothes. I made my own clothes. Years and years ago, when they were little, I crocheted rugs. I crocheted scarves and sweaters and did little things. And after I started really getting involved in writing, and then we also lived on a sailboat, I just we did that for 7 years and raised the kids kind of in that thing. And I just didn't ever seem to be interested in any of that again. And and really, I consider my away time or the things that give me the pleasure when I'm not writing really does involve walking trails. I have botanical gardens
Yeah.
here, um, wildlife refuge areas. a trail that's a rails to trails thing right behind the house. So I would say that exercise, moving, being out in nature, that sort of thing, that's really a hobby more than anything else. And then I also, like everybody else nowadays, I'm always interested in what the next Netflix is going to be, or the next,
I think we're all
you know,
slightly
what,
addicted now. I'm terrible. I have like the subscription for Amazon, and then I have the sub subscription. So I've got the Paramount Plus, and I've
oh,
got the true crime channel because somebody's always got something great on there. And then of course I've got Netflix, and
yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
and then I have
Prime,
all the wrestling too. So
Prime
it's
Video, and we've got the Prime
yeah,
Video, which gives us all this masterpiece theater stuff.
it's
I think
incredible.
I
I
do a
just
lot of
yeah
that. I do a lot of that, and I don't really. If I decide to watch, like I wanted to get interested in in Grey's Anatomy, but I never
oh I
watched it
love
on
that
actual television. I watched it. I started at season one and caught up,
yeah.
and I did the same with ER. I do it. My nonfiction involves a lot of medical
Yeah.
writing, so
How
I
did you
like those
find
series.
the catch up of Grey's Anatomy? What was your thoughts when you got to the latest season?
Oh, I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot. Um, and I like ER a lot. Now that's a much older series. Everything seems very dated in it, but I still liked it a lot.
Yeah, you should
But I,
try Chicago Med,
yeah, I like
Chicago
that one
Fire
too.
and
Yeah,
PD.
Chicago Med, I
Yeah,
like that one too. And that one I watched on Hulu because
yeah,
then I don't have to. In fact, that was the reason. One of the reasons I got Hulu was that I realized that I wanted to watch certain TV series that were weekly series that I would never. I'm really the other hobby I have is really current affairs and politics. I'm an activist sort of person,
yeah.
so I I um I wouldn't want to put time aside in the to say, oh, I have to watch this or that because it's on Wednesday night or whenever it is. I'd rather watch those at my leisure and keep up with the news. I'm more
Yeah, of
likely
course.
to have conversations with people about what's going on and getting involved in some of the. I've been
It's
involved
so
since the 60s. I've been involved in social change and justice issues, and I'm
I
still involved
connect
in
to
them
that
today.
so much. I really do because I watch your news. So I watch ABC 7 because that was the only news channel I've ever come across in the US. Um, and so I watch ABC 7s, and then I watch the BBC News, and then because BBC News gives me all the global stuff, and I just feel like it gives me that icebreaker with my guests because I know if I'm stuck and I'm trying to get somebody to relax so that the show comes out as a normal conversation, that I have news. Like if everything else fails, I've got news. I can say, well, what did you think of Biden's comment, or what do you
Yeah,
think of, the two police officers that were shot for that domestic in LA? Like I have all these areas I can go to. Um, but I find that I don't really watch stuff to enjoy it. I'm doing it to relax so that I can get myself into a position where I can go, right. One of
mhm.
my terrible hobbies, which my grandmother started, was I do cross stitch, which
Oh, do
I'm
you? I
currently
did that.
showing.
I did that too years and years ago. So did
Yeah,
my mother and sister. But that was so many years ago. It's hard to even believe I did it. But I
yeah.
started as a little girl,
Same.
doing the cross stitch on things.
Yep.
Yeah.
My grandmother was a professional knitter from the age of 8, and she had this great dream in her head of what me and my cousin should be. We should be ladies. We were to be ladies. We were to marry up into money, and we were to be leisurely. And she wanted us to cross stitch, and she wanted us to crochet, and she wanted us to knit, and she wanted us to be professional at it. And I just remember looking at her going, but Granny, my hands are all swollen. And she's like, well, you're just going to have to get on with it. Oh, because she always had this belief that if you are not doing something with your hands, idle hands was the theory.
Oh. Uh huh.
So, yeah, and she had me a lot. So anytime she had me, it was changing nappies. She taught me that, and she taught me how to dress my dog correctly, and how to put a pram together correctly, and how to serve tea without dribbling, and what biscuits do you serve with tea. There's a certain way to do it. And it was just, it's weird because I catch myself doing it now when my mother-in-law comes. I'll actually give her a tray with a perfect teacup, with a little saucer and the little teaspoons of the sugar and the milk and the biscuits, and it's all laid out perfectly. And then I think to myself, why did I just do all that effort when she's just gonna drink half a cup of tea?
Yeah.
But it's
Oh,
my
well.
nan's influence in my
Yes.
brain. Like, it's her that says to me, "Oh, your house is not clean enough. Why are you sitting there doing nothing? Go clean your house." And it's it's just because she was like my mom. Because my mom really was the person that raised me in the hospital, but we didn't have that close relationship outside the hospital because she would work. So
Hmm.
that meant I was with my nana, and to me, Nan was like she was my second mother. So it was
Uh-huh.
having two opposite women teaching me two different things. My mom wanted me to be the feminist activist, loudmouthed person, which I was. And then my nan was, ladylike, don't swear, watch what you're saying, manners, men are in the room, let men talk, women talk separately. It was just this whole other way of living.
Yeah.
But it has given me the most incredible material for writing. And I
That's
don't think she
that's true.
realized that.
That's true. I think there. Yeah, I think you're right. To see that, my mother was older when she had me, and my grandmother was older when she had my grandmother, and so they span a very long period of time. My mother was born before women could vote, so
Yeah,
so there's a whole history there. But I remember being told and being very kind of proud that my grandmother had been a milliner, and she stayed independent for
mm,
kind of as long as she could. I think my grandmother was a woman that if she hadn't felt pressured to marry, she probably wouldn't have.
yeah,
She enjoyed her life with her own work. She was also a wonderful seamstress. And then she
yeah,
did tatting and crocheting. I have a big bed cover that's for crocheted
yeah,
bedspread, and she did all of that. And then she was a baker and a cook. But we found out she really didn't like the baking much, but she liked her seamstress work and
yeah.
she she enjoyed making her own dresses and suits. And these were professionals. She was like a professional seamstress.
Wow.
And
See,
then
that's the
my
stories that
grandmother
make it.
also did her own, and she came along and she went to college, and she was the first woman to go to college in any of the family stuff. And she became a librarian, and she had a more um, she had a more egalitarian marriage, and she, even though it's I'm not sure we would have called it that. She stayed home with us and things like that, but more, and she knew she was going to go back to work and have her own career, and that
Yeah,
was just built into her life. So it
yeah,
wasn't an unusual thing for my sister and me to have the same idea
yeah.
going forward.
These are the stories that I love because that's the everyday person
Hmm.
who has to figure out life. And I
Hmm.
don't know why, but that was what I loved about Catherine was the everyday struggle, the everyday
Uh-huh.
person. And that's what I love. And I think that's what unites us all together in a way because it really does come across as amazing and fresh and enjoyable. So yeah. And funnily enough, my next question was, are you somebody that likes crafts? And do you find it clears sort of like your creative, I know this is a plumbing reference, but I can't think of anything else. But does it clear your tubes when you get all like gunged up and you get too many ideas going at once? I use
No,
crafts to kind of
no,
clear
I
it
don't.
out.
I don't use crafts at all anymore for any of that. It just doesn't interest me so much. I thought I might like to start drawing a little that sort of thing, but I everything sits here. I haven't done anything with it. I think
Yeah,
walking and reading are probably, and then seeing friends, being out. Later today I'm going to go out to dinner with a friend and a writer friend who now has another job, and so we
yeah,
don't get to see each other a lot, and we'll just sit and talk over everything, just the way you and I are,
yeah.
and
But
that
that's the
really
best thing. Yeah,
helps me a lot. I enjoy that. And then I'm a gregarious person who also needs to be alone a lot for this work.
yeah.
But
I
I'm
know
very
that, and I'm the
gregarious.
same.
In fact, a lot of people say, "How can you write alone in your house just day after day? When you're so gregarious." And I thought, I love being alone. I love being out with people, and I love being alone.
See, I'm weird. I like when I'm in hospital. I like to be alone to write if I'm getting peace to write, which is the issue usually. So I like my own single room because I can close the door and I can swear and I can throw things if my book's not going the way it should be.
Right.
But I am one of these people because I've been with Ian for so long. We've been together every day, like 24/7 for 14 years.
Yeah.
We don't really know how to be apart from each other.
Uh
So
huh.
him going and starting this bus journey that he is a bus driver and he's driving these buses, it has been like somebody's just taken half of my heart and walked out the door,
Oh, sure.
and it's been so hard to focus on writing because it feels like somebody just stole like half of me. And I've always been learning like to be alone again, and like, okay, it's okay to be alone. It's not, nothing's gonna happen to you. You're fine. And I am learning, but what I do to escape, and I almost use it to run the clock down till he comes home, is I write, 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 write.
Uh
And then I go, oh shit, I need to eat something.
huh.
And usually bolt to the kitchen because I don't want him to come in and say, have you eaten today? And me be like, no. And him being like, go eat something, because I'm terrible. If I get really into something, the rest of the world doesn't exist. So writing has become so much more like a crutch for me as well because it's hard to be away from him. And now that we're talking about starting a family, I'm like, oh my god, is this how it's going to feel when my kids leave home? Am I going to be sitting just suddenly crying at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon because they're not here? Like,
Oh dear. Well,
what's
that's
wrong
quite a
with
ways
me?
away.
Yeah,
You'll
like,
have many years.
I think I will get to the point where I'll be like, oh, thank God they're gone. But I know that my mom thinks that. Like, she had 14 years of a break from me, and then I came back for like 6 months. She loved the new adult me because I made the fire in the morning and made her cup up for coffee. And I made sure she ate, which she kind of felt was like I was being the parent because she didn't eat.
Mhm.
Um, and she loved it, but she didn't love my cats because
Ah,
she'd gotten so used to not having pets. So she got used to not hoovering and not chasing the animals around and falling over them. And so, like, she loved me, but she just wished I hadn't brought the cats home with me. Um,
well,
I said I'm a package deal, Mum. I have a 6'2" guy sleeping in the room, and I have two cats. I says it's a package deal.
uh-huh.
But now she's got my brother home with his girlfriend. So she's just swapped one child for the other, which happens in Shetland. We all come
Yeah.
back. That's
Yeah.
the curse. If you live in Shetland for any length of time, you get this a little elastic band that just kind of ties itself to your butt cheeks, and you don't even know
I'm
it's
sure.
there.
I
And
can
then
believe that.
you get to go away for so long, and then all of a sudden you will go ping, and you're suddenly back in Shetland, and you have no idea why. It just
Maine
happens.
is
It's
kind
like
of like
magic.
that too. People who
Yeah,
people who grew up in Maine and then leave always seem to go back because they always find a way back. I think it's because people's roots there go back so far that they
yeah.
find themselves drawn. Whereas I don't know. I never felt that rooted, and that's why I've moved around a lot without a lot of consequence. I d-
Yeah.
I don't. I feel like wherever I am is home, but I don't have one home place.
I really understand that because I've been a bit of a gypsy is kind of what the nickname in the family is for me because I'm terrible, right? Absolutely terrible. I stay somewhere for so long and then I'm like, Ian, I need to move. I
Yeah.
need to move somewhere else. I need to experience a little bit more of the world. And he gets so mad at me because we've moved, I think, I want to say 14 times in 14
Hmm.
years.
Yeah.
But that's not us staying there for like, we might have stayed a year one place or, 6 months somewhere. And it really is the case of I'm trying to find that place that I love, that's home to me, and I want to raise my kids in. And I did find that one little town that I absolutely adored. And I just haven't been able to get back there because I'm sure you've got expensive sea towns that you live in, that you've been in, that are really expensive to stay in because all the houses are like super expensive.
Yes.
So we stayed somewhere like that, and we got lucky. We got two houses that we could stay in, and we rented, and we were there for 3 years. Different houses, but we were there 3 years, and I fell in love with the place because I could walk to church, I could walk to the train station, I could walk anywhere I wanted, and I could even like just close the laptop up, fire it in my rucksack, and walk down to the local coffee shop. Everything was that easy. I don't stay there anymore. I stay in the countryside because he wanted to be in the country, and it's
Uh-huh.
driving me crazy because I can't go anywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, and
That's
his
hard.
family just, yeah, and once I find that sort of place that makes him happy, I can see the ocean. It's warm enough that I can sit outside because today has rained all day. But to be able to sit outside with a book and be happy, and that's what I loved about LA because I could go anywhere I wanted. I had that freedom, that thing that I adore so much, and I cannot wait to have that opportunity to be somewhere like that again. But I know this
Uh-huh.
is not my final place. I will be moving again,
Yeah. No, I
much to Ian's
understand.
distress. Yeah.
I
But
understand.
no.
My city life was certainly, all public transportation, and I never drove until we moved to Maine, and we had to get a car, and I had to learn to drive,
Classic.
and I mean it was just a whole different life. Here, I really have to drive. I go out and walk, but it's not
Yeah.
the same kind of practical walking that you do in a city.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I agree. And I mean, I think it's hilarious because I was a small town islander who then went
yeah.
to Glasgow, the East End of Glasgow, not even like the posh bit, the East End, where it's rough and tough and whatever. And now I'm living in the country again. So it's I think I feel like I'm going round in circles.
Well,
Eventually, I'll find the right
I
place eventually.
but maybe you're meant to live in all these different places. That's how I feel. I was meant to
I
live.
feel like writers we need to though, because we need to experience
Yeah,
everybody.
it
And the
really
only way
helps
to do
with
that
the
is if you live
setting.
there.
It helps with our setting to kind of um. I think that's what I like about writing series is that you, you have to keep it in a place which lets you create any kind of place you want. You can base
Yeah,
it on something, but you could set it in a real place, but you don't have to. You make up your own town. You make up your own main street. You make up your own city. You make it all up. And you can
yeah,
really, if you want to have lakes and rivers and oceans and whatever, you just put them in there.
yeah. Well, I myself have a long-term illness that makes me slow down and appreciate the day. What would you say is the one thing that makes you sort of slow down, smell the roses, and really enjoy just every day?
Um, well, just the whole process of my life, having done this for so many years, and being content in my life. Like I said, I like living alone. I like where I live. In a two-floor townhouse. I have my own office space here. You know,
Which I
um,
love, yeah.
yeah, and I really feel like incredibly privileged just to have work that I love still. I don't think about retirement. I love traveling. Um, I have friends, I have family. I think the thing that just keeps me going is that I love what I do, and I feel like I have a really good life.
That's a really good answer. I love that. What's
And
your
not
favorite?
everybody my age has a good life. I mean, seriously, um, a lot of people feel forced to retire. Um, I will never have that. I only want to write. I want to write for as long as I can, and
I'm with you on that. I will be
however
joining
many
you in
years
that
that
quest.
is. And
Yep.
I just feel like um, I want to preserve as much of this life, this pleasant life, and doing what I love for as long as I can.
I'm
And then
with
if
you on that.
if something happens to me and I'm gone, I will have felt like I lived a good life. And for many
See, I plan to leave
many
my
people.
legacy to my kids. So, like, one of them will be a writer, and they will get all mom's ideas in a box and say, "Can you complete the following?" And just that will be their gift in my, their will is, mom's choosing
Yes,
to be the writer of the family, which I think is a bit mean. But I would have loved if somebody had left me something like that. I think that, I always thought that was kind of cool. So, where's your favorite place to curl up during the day? Is it like, do you like the garden? Do you have a reader's nook? Do you like
I
to
like
curl
my
up in a
office, which
cafe?
is also a reading room. It's where I do most everything. I stream stuff here. I read here. I write here. Um, I have things around me that I like, and I've always had this sort of space, the writer space, and sometimes it was able to be in a that's, that's the garbage trucks going by.
It's
um,
okay.
but,
It's
but
everyday life conversation.
I've had offices everywhere, and they've always been living spaces because I don't really separate out this is writing, this is this. It all
Yeah.
flows together for me. And speaking of the business of the legacy in the family, my kids, neither one of them have, they're in their, and they have no memory of
Yeah.
not being writer. That's all they know.
Yeah,
So
that's
that,
cool.
when kids come into a family where people are already doing things, of course,
Yeah.
I already had to start writing. They
Unfortunately,
don't
my reading
remember it,
space
you
is
know.
bed.
But then you'll always have that you'll have that to pass on to them. That's very good.
I do love. I love that answer because, like, the way I look at it is, I don't have a special area just to go sit and read. I just have the bed or the bath. But I'm trying to make it consciously to take time out of the day to read, to relax and get my juices
Uh-huh.
going. So yeah, that's what I do. We're now on to the word game, which is the final segment of our podcast. So I'm going to read a list of sort of words, and you can see what books pop to mind. Now I will tell you, I gave you a theme. So when I looked you up and I was going to have you on, I tried to imagine where I would meet you, and I imagined a conference set in a sunny little town in Georgia where it's warm and we're all gathered round in a beautiful little garden with fresh flowers and all this beautiful smells. And we're talking about writing and books, and we're knitting and we're doing all these crafty things um, as a fun adventure in our little world. So that was the theme I gave you. So
Okay.
your first word is wool.
I'm sorry. First word is what?
Wool, as in wool from sheep.
I'm sorry. I'm not understanding you.
The first word is like wool, as in yarn.
Oh, loom. Oh, okay. Um, loom. Hmm. All I can think of is a title where something blooms.
I
Yeah.
actually thought of Catherine Cookson, The Girl in the Cave, because
Oh,
she talks about her woolen shawl, and it gets threadbare as she's trying to live in this cave with her son.
oh,
And I
wool.
just, yeah,
I
like,
thought you said wool. Okay, well, wool. I have a friend, and her book is called the Skin I'm In, and her name is Kate Bowman, and this is a woman
ooh,
who has sheep in her real life. She had sheep, and in her book life, she was a spinner, and so she has this character, Martha, who learns how to spin her own wool. And
oh
so the
wow.
title of the book is the Spin I'm In, and it's all about wool.
What about reading Nook?
I'm sorry, did you give me another word?
Reading place, like our favorite reading chair, like a reading, like an armchair or a beat up sort of window seat.
I think I'm misunderstanding what the word game is. I thought you were giving me a word and that had to be in the title of a book.
No, no, it just connects to the book. It
Oh,
just
it just
connects to the book.
connects to the book. Oh, okay. Your
To
reading
give you
chair.
an idea, I had Round Tower by Catherine Cookson because it talks about the girl who sits in the tower in the window seat,
Oh,
and she's looking out for the guy that she's fallen in love with. And it's always nighttime they meet, so she's getting excited as the
okay.
moon's coming out.
Well, and when it comes to a window seat, when I think of a window seat and reading, I have a book in progress actually called "Shooting in the Neighborhood,"
Ooh,
and the people there have a window seat that plays a role in this. And then Amber Light, after after Sarah, my main character is her. She sits in the window seat all night long. And so that has a meaning in that too.
I love that. That is, I like that so much. What about sunshine?
Sunshine. Well, Amber Light, I think of sunshine because of the way the sun shines and the light shines on the marshes, the Georgia,
Yeah,
the marshes
yeah.
on the coast of Georgia. And
This one's a little bit tougher. Okay, it's a comfy garden chair.
oh, comfy garden chair. That's there's a woman in my and that a friend of mine, and her book is called the Court Garden, and she has comfy garden chairs that she and a man sit and talk a lot. And in a beautiful garden and comfy garden chairs.
I had the Darrells because they're always in the garden chairs, especially Larry when he's writing. He's sort of lying in this wooden chair, and I just always thought of him for some daft reason when I think of garden chairs now. What
Yeah,
about rose bushes?
rose. Well, there's the book, the historical novel called Of Roses,
Ooh,
um, and they have rose garden
yeah.
in it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
What about
yeah.
daisies?
Well, then I think of daisies. I think of well, actually, I think of daisies. I think of this, one of my own books
Oh, okay.
called Chapels on the Hill, and the Chapels is a family, and they opened a private botanical garden in what used to be the family farm, and they have white daisies and other white flowers that are on their terrace. But the moon kind of the moon garden.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love that. And your final word to wrap up this amazing podcast is sunflowers.
Is what?
Sunflowers.
Sunflowers. Oh, sunflowers. Oh, well, sunflowers are just in Wyoming.
Yep.
The ranchers, Wyoming
I tied
ranchers,
that one to
Wyoming
your book.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
I was
sunflowers
thinking
all
ahead.
over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all over. So there there will be that was a summer book, so there will be sunflowers. The Doc's Holiday Homecoming is a fall and winter book, and book three they might have yeah they'll still have a few sunflowers because that's going to be a Thanksgiving end of Thanksgiving.
Oh,
I
I
like
like
these
that.
holiday books, even though I'm not big
Me
on Christmas
too.
myself. I'm not a big Christmas person. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed writing Christmas stories in some of these.
I
Uh,
do too. Like I love that, but unfortunately I never get to do the Christmas stories. I have a pile, literally a pile of books I want to write that's Christmas based.
yeah,
I just need to find the right place that I can sort of do them, that I can feel confident in doing them. But
you
that's a
could do
different story.
Christmas stories with a lot of the Harlequin lines if you wanted to
Yeah.
target the Harlequin
I had an
Mills
idea
and
for
Rose.
the midwife one at Christmas.
Uh huh.
So, yeah, it was delivering Santa's miracle
Oh,
was the one
wonderful.
that I had. Yeah, I had that one, and I sort of fully flushed it out as well. It's just because when I worked out my midwifery line that I wanted to do, I had something like 22 books planned.
Yeah.
So it would be like it would be a big thing to say, Harlequin, hi, my name's Crystal Fleming, and I'd really like to do 22 of your medical romance books, please. Like I don't quite see them kind of saying, okay, we're
No, I
doing like
think
22
you
books.
better actually, one of my friends, that friend I was telling you about when we first
Yeah.
started talking, was somebody who was able to make a 3 book series out of a particular hospital. Then she had the
Oh,
different people in the hospital, and it was a small town Wisconsin hospital.
yeah. Because
Mm,
my whole idea for my midwifery book is to set it in the Orkney Islands. So it's in a very rural place in Scotland with
yeah,
beautiful scenery, and to have these group of midwives that go there as part of this opportunity to help out in the islands, but they end up falling in love with people from all over
yeah,
the world through this one place, this one hospital, the Orcadian um, Royal. And yeah, that's my plan. I just I've been a scaredy cat. I think that's what's happened. I lost all my confidence and I'm trying to get it back again.
Oh
So
well,
yeah.
actually, I think that sounds like a wonderful series, a whole midwifery series,
Yeah, the
and
thing was I was a trainee midwife. I got so close to completing my midwifery and then my health gave out and they told me they weren't going to let me finish the course.
oh dear,
And it broke my heart because I got told by so many of the staff, "Oh my God, you're the best midwife we've had in years," and I'm only in my first year. And I delivered babies, and I worked with all these people, and it broke my heart to walk away. So at least I can take all the stories that I've seen and I've experienced in those wars and just really give them life in books and keep it going. And I want to try and encourage people to go and do midwifery jobs in the Outer Islands because they're running out.
yes,
There's hardly any midwives left, and maternity units are shrinking, and people are losing babies because there's not enough, maternity support out there. So I'm hoping if the books can help, then I will be more than happy to
well,
add to that.
I think so. I have no doubt, and I think that's how when we were talking about all the like that series. Just think of all the women that it brought to light over these generations that covers now, and
Yeah,
all the bringing dignity to this work too, and the
yeah.
setting of the Renata's house. You know, the
And it's weird because home births are still a thing in Shetland. They're really big in Shetland. It's not a
uh-huh,
private thing. You can have that on the
yes,
NHS. Especially if you stay at an island where you have to get two ferries to the mainland and then it's a
yes,
3 hour flight to Aberdeen. Or you have to get a
right,
14-hour boat from the mainland to Aberdeen. It
right,
is awful. So a lot of these women, it's either in the local hospital or you're having birth at home.
mm-hmm,
And I really want to show that women there work twice as hard as people in big hospitals. They have to learn twice as fast. They have to adapt in a drop of a hat. they have to pull off these incredible things. And
Yes.
luckily for me, I'm still very connected into the maternity units and into the specialist doctors. And I will have disabled heroines too. Like, I'll have a girl who's got arthritis or has lupus, and people giving birth who are disabled too, because I believe in inclusivity, and I think
Hmm.
that I want that to show in my work. So I'm making a point now in pushing those angles. But it has been a pleasure having you. I have it's be you have I came on before I had had a bad day, and you've made my day so much better. You have cheered me up beyond no end, and
Oh,
I
well, thank you
cannot
so
wait to have
much
you back.
for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking to you before. I enjoy talking to you now. This has really been great. You've got to get busy writing all of these books too. You've got,
I write, I podcast, I study. I
I
think I went
know,
insane at some point.
I know you do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Thank you so,
And
so
it
much.
is just because I'm stuck in the house. I mean, if I was my original, like, because I was a dancer just like you, and I
Yeah.
danced so much. And then when my body said, no, you're not going to do this anymore, I went through crisis. I didn't know what I was going to do. I'd always journaled, I'd always been writing, but I never really thought of it as an opportunity in a career. So I'm fighting my way through the politics, and I hope one day that people look at me in the way that they look at you, and the way they look at Catherine, and the way that they look at Danielle Steele, and to just be like, no matter what they put in front of her, she got there. She broke it. She broke the glass. She made it possible for the rest of us to
Uh-huh.
follow.
Yes.
That's my
And
goal.
well, we're just we want to create the careers that are right for us. That's the
I
big.
just want it to be a good path for other people. Like, if I
Mhm.
never make it, as long as I knock down those doors that other people can walk through and they can live their dream, that to me is enough of reward. That really is.
Absolutely. Good for you.
Well, guys, you're going to want to stop by next week as we have another guest who is completely right wing. You will never see her coming, and it'll be very much worth it. So, see you all again next Monday.